The distress signal pulsed through space like a fading heartbeat. On the bridge of the HSS Defender, Communications Officer White adjusted her headset, frowning at the unusual pattern. After 12 years in deep space, she thought she'd heard every kind of signal possible. "Captain Walker," she called out, "I'm picking up something strange. It's not matching any known human frequencies." Captain Walker moved from his command chair to her station, his heavy boots making solid thuds against the metal deck. Life on Earth's high gravity had given all humans their characteristic sturdy build, something they'd only discovered was unusual after reaching the stars. "Play it," he ordered, leaning over her console. The signal filled the bridge, a melodic series of tones that seemed almost musical. The bridge crew exchanged confused looks. This was no standard distress call. "Origin point?" Walker asked, already moving to the navigation console. "About 3 light-years out, sir, beyond the edge of mapped space." Walker nodded slowly. Humanity had only been in space for 50 years, their tough physiology and natural adaptations to Earth's harsh conditions making them surprisingly good at it. But they'd found no other intelligent life yet. Until now. "Plot a course," he commanded, "but keep us at battle stations. First contact situations can go either way." The Defender dropped out of faster-than-light travel 6 hours later. The sight that greeted them made even the veteran crew gasp. A massive fleet of crystalline ships hung in space, their designs unlike anything humans had ever seen. They seemed to be made of living crystal, with elegant curves and flowing lines that defied normal engineering. But they were under attack. Dark shapes swarmed around the crystal ships, organic-looking vessels that moved like hungry predators. As the crew watched, one of the beautiful crystal ships shattered under concentrated fire. "Multiple incoming transmissions," White reported, her fingers dancing over her console. "The crystal ships are broadcasting in multiple frequencies. Wait, the universal translation matrix is finding patterns. Converting now." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in slightly accented English. "This is Ambassador Reed of the Stellar Commonwealth to unknown vessel. We require immediate assistance. Our fleet carries over 3 million civilian refugees. The swarm is overwhelming our defenses." Walker didn't hesitate. "Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Launch fighter screen and charge main weapons. Communications, inform the Commonwealth we're moving to assist." The Defender surged forward, its heavy human-made armor and weapons systems coming online. The ship had been built on Earth, designed to withstand crushing pressures and extreme conditions that would tear lighter ships apart. The first swarm ship to turn toward them fired some sort of biological projectile. It splattered harmlessly against the Defender's hull. "Sir," the science officer reported, "their weapons seem calibrated for those crystal ships. They're not penetrating our armor." Walker allowed himself a grim smile. What they'd first seen as a disadvantage, the need to build extremely tough ships to handle the stress of Earth's gravity well, had just become their edge. The Defender's main guns opened up, filling space with high-powered plasma bolts. The swarm ships, used to fighting the more fragile Commonwealth vessels, had no defense against the sheer destructive power of human weapons. "Commonwealth vessels, this is Captain Walker," he broadcast. "Form up behind us. We'll clear you a path." The crystal ships, moving with surprising grace, fell into formation behind the Defender. Their crews watched in amazement as the human vessel shrugged off hits that would have destroyed their own ships, responding with overwhelming firepower. The swarm, facing unexpected resistance, began to pull back. Within an hour, they had retreated entirely, leaving the combined fleet alone in space. "Captain," White called out, "I'm receiving a priority transmission from the Commonwealth flagship. They're requesting permission to dock for emergency repairs, and—" She paused, double-checking her translation. "They're asking what kind of world could produce ships and crews capable of fighting like that." Walker looked around at his crew. All of them built strong and sturdy by Earth's higher gravity. All of them naturally adapted to handle stress and survive harsh conditions. He thought about how humanity had evolved as persistence hunters, developing stamina and determination that had served them well in space. "Tell them," he said with a slight smile, "we come from a place they'd call a death world, and we'd be happy to help." The meeting chamber of the Commonwealth Council sparkled like the inside of a diamond. Captain Walker stood before the gathered alien leaders, feeling oddly heavy. The Commonwealth ships used much lower gravity than what he was used to on Earth. The council members themselves were as elegant as their ships. Tall, slender beings with slightly transparent skin that seemed to glow from within. The Luminars, as they called themselves, had evolved on a world of gentle breezes and soft light. They looked at Walker with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "You mean to tell us," Head Counselor Bell spoke carefully through the translator, "that your people deliberately build weapons, that you prepare for war even in times of peace?" Walker nodded. "On Earth, we have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We maintain our fleet not because we want to fight, but because we want to protect." The counselors murmured among themselves, their skin flickering with patterns of light that the translator couldn't decode. Walker waited patiently, remembering his first officer's words about how different their thinking was from humans. A warning tone cut through the chamber. On the main display screen, emergency signals flashed. Swarm vessels detected. A Luminar operator's voice rang out. "They're attacking the colony of light." The council chamber erupted in patterns of distressed light. Walker watched as they discussed and debated, precious minutes ticking by. "How long until your ships can reach the colony?" he asked. "Our nearest vessels are 3 hours away," Bell answered, skin pulsing with worried colors. Walker tapped his communication badge. Walker to Defender. Emergency launch sequence. Target: Colony of Light. Time to ready. 5 minutes, sir, came the immediate reply. The counselors stared at him, their glow dimming in surprise. "You keep your ships ready to launch, all the time?" one asked. "We do," Walker replied simply, "because we know that threats don't wait for debates to end." "Permission to assist your colony." The council took precious seconds to discuss, but finally Bell nodded. "Granted, but we request to observe your response, to understand." Minutes later, Walker stood on his bridge with 3 Luminar observers behind him. He ignored their gasps of shock as the crew efficiently moved through combat preparations. Dropping out of FTL in 30 seconds, the navigator announced, "Colony in visual range. Swarm ships detected. 12 contacts. Launch fighters," Walker ordered. "Main weapons free. Priority on protecting civilian areas." The Luminars watched in fascination as the human crew worked. There was no debate, no discussion, just immediate action backed by years of training. Through the main viewport, they could see the colony of light, a beautiful collection of crystalline structures floating in space. Swarm ships were attacking the outer sections, their biological weapons eating through the delicate structures. The Defender's first volley caught 2 swarm ships by surprise, destroying them instantly. The human fighters swarmed out, their pilots' natural predator instincts making them deadly in space combat. "How?" one of the Luminar observers asked, watching as human pilots pulled maneuvers that would have blacked out their own people. "How do you handle such forces?" "Earth's gravity is higher than most worlds," Walker explained as he coordinated the defense. "We evolved to handle physical stress. What you see as extraordinary, we consider normal training." The battle was over in 20 minutes. The swarm, again facing unexpected resistance, retreated. The colony of light had suffered damage, but it stood intact. As repair crews worked, Walker found himself back in the council chamber. The Luminars looked at him differently now. "We have always believed that advanced civilizations must be peaceful," Bell said slowly. "That violence was a sign of primitiveness. But today we saw violence used to protect peace. Perhaps we have more to learn." Walker looked at these beings who had achieved so much through pure cooperation and felt a deep respect. "And we have much to learn from you. Perhaps that's why space is so big, so different species can help each other grow. The council chamber filled with patterns of agreeing light. Outside the windows, human repair crews worked alongside Luminar engineers, each bringing their own strengths to the task. The first steps toward understanding had been taken, even if they had come through fire. Commander Blake stood in the Commonwealth Science Lab, surrounded by floating screens and curious Luminar scientists. Their glowing forms moved gracefully in the low gravity, but Blake kept his magnetic boots firmly locked to the floor. Even after weeks of working together, he hadn't gotten used to their lighter artificial gravity. "Show them the comparison again," Dr. Ray said, her own sturdy human frame looking out of place among the delicate aliens. The main screen lit up with two images, a human heart and a Luminar light core. "The difference is remarkable," the lead Luminar scientist, Glow, said through the translator. "Your hearts must work against Earth's gravity constantly. They're nearly 3 times as strong as our cores." Blake nodded. "That's why we can handle high-G combat maneuvers that would kill most species. We evolved on a world that tried to crush us every day." The lab's emergency lights suddenly flashed red. A voice came over the speakers. "Hull breach in Section 7. Gravity plating failure imminent." The Luminar scientists froze in panic, their bodies flickering with alarm patterns. But Blake was already moving. "Everyone grab a support," he shouted, reaching for the nearest handhold. Seconds later, the artificial gravity failed. The Luminars drifted helplessly, their bodies not designed for zero-G environments. But Blake and Dr. Ray pushed off the walls with practiced ease, their Earth-evolved muscles and reflexes letting them navigate the weightless environment naturally. "The emergency suits are in that locker," Blake called out, pointing. "Dr. Ray, help me get them secured." Working together, the two humans moved through the zero-G environment with surprising grace, helping each Luminar scientist into emergency suits. Their bodies, evolved to fight Earth's constant gravitational pull, were perfectly adapted for space emergencies. "How?" Glow asked as Blake secured his suit. "How are you so capable in this chaos?" "Earth isn't just heavy," Blake explained, pushing off another wall to catch a floating piece of equipment. "It's chaotic. Earthquakes, storms, floods. We evolved to handle sudden changes. Space isn't so different." The repair crews arrived 15 minutes later, sealing the breach and restoring gravity. In the aftermath, the Luminar scientists gathered around their equipment with new excitement. "Look at these readings," Glow said, pointing to a screen showing human biological data. "Their bones are dense enough to handle rapid pressure changes. Their muscles can work without constant gravity. Even their inner ear structure helps them handle spatial disorientation better than any Commonwealth species." Dr. Ray smiled. "Earth made us tough. High gravity made our bones strong. Dense atmosphere made our lungs efficient. Predators made us alert. We never knew these were advantages until we reached space." The lab's main screen changed to show a swarm ship next to a human vessel. The difference in design was striking. The swarm ships were built for fighting the lighter, more delicate Commonwealth vessels. "This is why the swarm fears your ships," another scientist said. "They evolved to fight beings from gentle worlds. Their weapons can't handle your natural durability." Blake watched as they brought up more comparisons: human reaction times, muscle density, bone strength. Everything that had made Earth seem like a death trap had actually been preparing humanity for the challenges of space. "But it's not just physical," he added. "Living on a dangerous world taught us something else: how to protect others." The screens shifted to show human and Commonwealth ships working together. The elegant crystal ships now had human-designed shield generators. Human repair crews worked alongside Luminar engineers, combining their different strengths. "Your bodies may be built for war," Glow said, his globe pulsing thoughtfully, "but your minds seek peace. Perhaps that is the greatest adaptation of all." Dr. Ray looked at the display showing their combined fleet. "Earth taught us to be strong, but it also taught us to work together to survive. Now we can help others do the same." Outside the lab's windows, A human fighter squadron flew patrol alongside graceful Commonwealth ships. The fighters' heavy armor and powerful engines were a sharp contrast to the crystalline beauty of their allies, but they worked together perfectly. The universe had turned Earth's harsh conditions into humanity's greatest gift, the strength to protect those who needed it. Major Thompson watched from the observation deck as the first mixed human Commonwealth combat unit attempted their training exercise. The massive space station's training ring spun slowly, creating artificial gravity that was a compromise between Earth normal and Commonwealth standard. Below, 20 Luminar trainees moved carefully through the combat course, their glowing bodies directed by 5 human instructors. Their movements were uncertain, but they were trying. "They're getting better," Captain Miller said, standing beside Thompson. "Last week, they couldn't even hold the weapons properly." Thompson nodded. The Luminars had never needed to fight before meeting humans. Their entire civilization was built on harmony and cooperation. But the swarm had changed everything. "Alert status drill beginning," the computer announced. Red lights flashed through the training area. The human instructors immediately snapped into action, but the Luminar trainees hesitated, their bodies flickering with confusion patterns. "Stop," Thompson called out. "Everyone gather up." The mixed group assembled before him, the humans standing naturally while the Luminars drifted slightly in the lighter gravity. "You're thinking too much," Thompson explained. "In combat, you don't have time for committee meetings. You need to trust your instincts." "But we don't have combat instincts," one of the Luminars, Bright, said through the translator. "Our world never required them." Thompson picked up a training weapon. "You have something better. You have perfect coordination with each other. Show me how you work together in your engineering teams." The Luminars moved together, their movements becoming fluid and graceful as they demonstrated their natural teamwork. "That's your advantage," Thompson said. "Humans are good at combat because we evolved as predators. But you evolved perfect cooperation. Use that." He divided them into new teams, mixing humans and Luminars differently. "Humans, you're the squad leaders. Luminars, coordinate like you would in an engineering project. Let's run it again." This time, when the alert sounded, something changed. The Luminars moved as one, supporting each other while the human leaders directed their movements. What they lacked in aggressive instincts, they made up for in perfect coordination. "Now that's more like it," Miller said, watching as the mixed teams completed the course in record time. The success was short-lived. The station's real alert system suddenly activated. "Swarm ships detected." The announcement echoed through the station. "This is not a drill. All combat units to battle stations." Thompson watched as his trainees rushed to their positions. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, but surprisingly, the Luminars kept up, using their natural coordination to work perfectly as teams. "Training Group 1, launch in defensive pattern," Thompson ordered through the comm system. "Remember your drills. Humans, take point. Luminars, support formation." The space around the station filled with ships, human fighters flying aggressive attack patterns while Commonwealth vessels moved in perfect sync to support them. The swarm hadn't expected this kind of coordinated defense. "Look at that," Miller said, pointing to one of the displays. A group of Luminar pilots had formed a perfect geometric pattern around their human squadron leader, their combined fire creating a defensive screen that the swarm couldn't penetrate. "They're not fighting like humans," Thompson realized. "They're fighting like Luminars, with perfect harmony. But now it's harmony with a purpose." The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the swarm had been driven back without a single loss on their side. The mixed human Commonwealth force had proven itself in real combat. Later, in the debriefing room, Thompson looked at his tired but proud trainees. The humans were grinning with battlefield excitement, while the Luminars glowed with a new kind of confidence. "Today you proved something," he told them. "Humans aren't better warriors than Luminars. We're just different. True strength comes from combining our different abilities." Bright stepped forward, his glow steady and strong. We thought we had to become like humans to fight, but you taught us to fight like ourselves." Thompson smiled. The Commonwealth would never be a warrior culture like humanity, but they didn't need to be. They just needed to be themselves, with a little human help to show them how. Lieutenant Ross stood in the memorial chamber of the Commonwealth Station, watching the Luminars perform their morning ritual. Their bodies glowed with deep blue patterns of grief as they remembered their first combat losses. 3 crystal ships had been destroyed in the last swarm attack, taking 12 Luminar crew members with them. "I don't understand," said Dawn, a young Luminar pilot who had survived the battle. His light flickered with confusion and pain. "We did everything right. We followed all the training. Why did they still die?" Ross took a deep breath. In all their teaching about combat, the humans hadn't fully prepared the Commonwealth species for this part, the loss of friends in battle. "Sometimes," Ross said quietly, "doing everything right isn't enough. That's something we learned on Earth a long time ago." The memorial chamber's walls reflected the grieving lights of the Luminars, creating a beautiful but sad display. More Commonwealth species had gathered, not just Luminars, but others from their alliance of peaceful worlds. All of them were struggling with this new reality. "On our worlds," Dawn continued, "death only comes at the natural end of life. We don't. We never had to face this kind of loss before." Ross moved to a control panel and brought up images of Earth's military memorials. "Humans have been dealing with the cost of war for thousands of years. We learned that it's okay to grieve, to feel pain. It makes us better protectors, not weaker ones." The station shook slightly as another alert sounded. The swarm was probing their defenses again. But this time, something was different. The Luminars didn't panic or hesitate. "Combat teams to stations," Dawn announced, his grief light mixing with a new determination. "Form up in defense pattern 3. Ross watched with pride as the Commonwealth crews moved to their posts. They were still grieving, but they were also protecting their people. They had learned one of humanity's hardest lessons, how to keep fighting even with a heavy heart. In space, the battle unfolded differently than before. The Commonwealth ships moved with their usual perfect coordination, but now there was a new element. They were protecting each other fiercely, refusing to let another friend fall. "Squadron 2, Titan formation," Dawn ordered over the comm. "Don't let them separate us. Remember the ones we lost." The swarm attacked aggressively, but the combined human Commonwealth fleet held firm. Human ships provided the heavy firepower, while Commonwealth vessels created intricate defensive patterns. They fought not with anger, but with determination. When the battle ended, the swarm had been driven back without any losses on their side. The Commonwealth crews gathered again in the memorial chamber, but the mood had changed. "I think I understand now," Dawn said to Ross. "Humans don't fight because you love violence. You fight because you've learned that sometimes you must protect what you love." Ross nodded. "That's the hardest lesson of being a warrior. We don't fight because we want to. We fight because we have to." The Luminar Council members entered the chamber, their bodies glowing with complex patterns of grief and pride. Head Counselor Bell approached Ross. "We feared that learning combat would change who we are," Bell said. "And it has, but not in the way we feared. We haven't become violent. We've become protective." Ross looked around the chamber. The Commonwealth species were comforting each other, their different forms of expression mixing with human gestures of support. They were learning to balance their peaceful nature with the need to defend it. "Your people will never be like humans," Ross said. "And that's good. The galaxy needs your kindness and harmony just as much as it needs our strength." Dawn's glow brightened slightly. "Perhaps that is why we met. Not just so you could teach us to fight, but so we could remind you what you're fighting for." Outside the memorial chamber's windows, human and Commonwealth ships patrolled together. Each had paid a price for this alliance, but they had also gained something precious: understanding. The galaxy was changing. The Commonwealth was learning the cost of survival, while humanity was remembering the importance of what they protected. Together, They were becoming something new, warriors who fought for peace. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the flagship Thunder, watching as the largest swarm fleet they had ever seen emerged from faster-than-light travel. The space around them filled with hundreds of organic ships, their dark forms blocking out the distant stars. "All ships, battle stations," she ordered calmly. Around her, the combined human Commonwealth fleet moved into position. 50 human warships formed the front line, while 300 Commonwealth vessels arranged themselves in complex geometric patterns behind them. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "the swarm is broadcasting something. It's different from their usual signals." "They've never faced a force like this," Stone said. "We've evolved, and they know it." The massive swarm fleet surged forward. But instead of their usual chaotic attack, they moved with new purpose. They had learned from their defeats. "They're targeting the Commonwealth ships first," Tactical reported. "Trying to separate us." Stone smiled. A month ago, this would have worked. But things had changed. "All ships, execute pattern starburst," she ordered. The Commonwealth fleet suddenly broke apart, their ships splitting into smaller groups. Each group had 2 human warships at its core, surrounded by rings of crystalline Commonwealth vessels. It was a formation that played to both species' strengths. "Swarm fleet is hesitating," Tactical reported. "They've never seen this pattern before." The battle exploded into life. The swarm's biological weapons splashed against human armor, while Commonwealth ships wove complex defensive screens. But the real surprise came from the Commonwealth crews themselves. "Look at that," Stone's first officer said, pointing to one of the displays. A group of Commonwealth ships had modified their crystal structures, creating prism-like formations that reflected and amplified the human ship's weapon fire. What would have been powerful shots became devastating beams that cut through multiple swarm vessels. "They're not just copying our tactics," Stone realized. "They're adapting them to their own abilities." The battle raged for hours. The swarm threw everything they had against the combined fleet, but they couldn't break through. Every time they found a weakness in human defenses, Commonwealth ships would fill the gap. When they tried to overwhelm Commonwealth vessels, human warships would step in with heavy firepower. "Admiral," communications called out again. "Commander Dawn is requesting permission for a special maneuver." They'd been practicing something new. Stone watched as a group of Commonwealth ships suddenly broke formation. They arranged themselves in a spinning circle, their crystalline hulls vibrating at specific frequencies. The human ships in their group fired directly at them. Instead of taking damage, the Commonwealth ships caught the energy weapons in their crystal structures, passing them from ship to ship, adding power with each transfer. When they released the combined energy, it created a shockwave that ripped through an entire section of the swarm fleet. "That," Stone said with pride, "was definitely not in our training manual." The swarm fleet began to pull back. For the first time, they had faced an enemy that was more than just physically strong. They had faced 2 species working together, each making the other better. Later, during the victory celebration, Stone met with the Commonwealth leaders. Their bodies glowed with pride and achievement. "We could never have done this alone," High Counselor Bell said. "Not just because we needed your strength, but because we needed to learn how to use our own abilities in new ways." Stone nodded. "And we needed to learn that raw power isn't everything. Your precision and coordination made our weapons twice as effective." They looked out at the combined fleet, now resting after the battle. Human ships, tough and powerful, floated alongside elegant Commonwealth vessels. They were different in every way, but that had become their greatest strength. "The swarm thought we would be easy prey," Bell said, his glow pulsing steadily. "They didn't understand that peace doesn't mean weakness. It just means we choose when to fight." Stone smiled. "And who to fight alongside?" The stars shined brightly beyond the viewport, seeming to celebrate with them. 2 very different species had not just survived together, they had grown together. and the galaxy would never be quite the same. The graduation ceremony at the new Commonwealth Defense Academy filled the great crystal dome with light and pride. 5 years had passed since the great battle that drove the swarm from Commonwealth space. Now the first class of jointly trained peacekeepers was ready to take their posts. Captain Walker, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the stage beside High Counselor Bell. Before them, rows of graduates sat in perfect formation, humans and Commonwealth species together, their uniforms showing the new combined fleet insignia. When we first met the humans, Bell addressed the crowd, his glow bright with emotion. We feared their warrior nature would corrupt our peaceful ways. We were wrong. Instead, they taught us that true peace must sometimes be protected. Walker stepped forward to speak next, and the Commonwealth taught us that strength isn't just about power. It's about knowing when and how to use it wisely. In the front row, a young Luminar named Light sat beside her human classmate, Jones. They were the top graduates of their class and symbolized everything the Academy had hoped to achieve. "Class, rise," Walker commanded. The graduates stood as one, humans with their solid stance, Luminars with their gentle glow, and other Commonwealth species with their own unique ways. But they moved together, showing both military precision and Commonwealth grace. "You are the first generation," Bell continued, "to truly bridge our cultures. You understand both the art of peace and the necessity of defense." The ceremony continued as each graduate received their commission. When Light approached the stage, her glow was steady and confident, so different from the uncertain Luminars of 5 years ago. "Graduate Light," Walker said formally, "your thesis on combining Commonwealth crystal technology with human defensive systems has already been approved for implementation. You represent the best of both our cultures." Light's glow pulsed with pride as she accepted her officer's insignia. "We protect the peace," she said, quoting the Academy's motto, "so peace can protect us all." After the ceremony, the new officers gathered in the observation dome. Through the crystal walls, they could see the combined fleet patrolling nearby. Human warships still looked tough and powerful, but now they gleamed with Commonwealth crystal enhancements. Commonwealth ships still showed their elegant beauty, but now they carried human-designed weapons systems perfectly integrated into their structures. "Ready for our first patrol?" Jones asked Light as they watched the ships pass. "Ready," she replied, her glow showing excitement. "Our ship launches tomorrow. First combined crew on a new hybrid vessel." Their ship, waiting in the construction dock, represented everything they had achieved. It had the strength of a human warship but was built with Commonwealth crystals. Its weapons were human-designed but powered by Commonwealth energy systems. The crew would be mixed, each species bringing their unique strengths to their roles. Admiral Walker and Counselor Bell joined the graduates in the dome. They watched as a group of swarm ships appeared at the edge of sensor range, then quickly turned away after seeing the combined fleet. "They don't even test our borders anymore," Bell observed. "Not since they learned what we can do together." Walker nodded. "Being strong doesn't mean we have to fight. Sometimes, being strong means we don't have to." The graduates began heading to their assignments, each going to ships and stations throughout Commonwealth space. Some would serve on human vessels, others on Commonwealth ships, and many on the new hybrid ships that represented their combined future. Light and Jones took one last look at the stars before heading to their new posting. The galaxy seemed bigger now, full of both dangers and possibilities. But they were ready for it. "You know what I learned at the Academy," Light said to her human friend. "Humans didn't make us stronger by teaching us to fight. You made us stronger by showing us we were strong all along. We just needed to believe in ourselves." Jones smiled. "And you taught us that being peaceful isn't the same as being weak. Strength and peace can exist together." As their new ship departed the Academy the next day, its crystal-enhanced hull gleaming in the starlight, it carried more than just a crew. It carried the promise of a new way forward, one where the warriors had learned wisdom, and the peaceful had found their strength. Together, They had become the guardians their galaxy needed. Not conquerors, not victims, but protectors of a peace worth defending.